Hey, everybody. Welcome to Real Words. This is our new series for 2025 on behalf of Electric Company Theater. And I have with me today Callie Prendiville Johnson. Hey, Callie, thanks for joining me today.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you here. The gist of this series is to talk about an upcoming production for Electric Company Theater. We will heretofore call it ECT so that I
Right.
quit stumbling over my words.
It's a
And
mouthful.
ECT produces full length plays. Sometimes they are original, innovative, and immersive experiences. It's been such a great pleasure to participate in some of these and for sure to go and see them.
Thank you.
And some pretty intimate storytelling because sometimes they take place in an enclosed, smaller space. And sometimes musical events like concerts
Mm.
or just showcasing specific artists that are local to the area. Callie is the co artistic director and co founder of ECT. Callie, why don't you give us a little introduction about yourself and tell us a little bit more about ECT?
Sure. My name's Callie. I'm the co-founding co-artistic director along with my husband, Brian Johnson. During COVID, we really started this project, which was both a horrible time to start
Yeah,
a theater
right.
company, but also a clarifying time because suddenly we couldn't meet together in rooms and share stories. And suddenly when that was, when the option was taken away, it felt even more important. So, it's something that we both have educational theater backgrounds, have been theater teachers. Brian still is a theater teacher. And so our whole sort of careers have been in that. But during COVID, it that pause kind of made us realize, okay, we love our educational theater, we love our students, but we really want to do something for ourselves, with our friends, with the people that we care about. That's kind of like how we want to be spending our time when we are able to again. And so since then, since we have been able, thankfully, to get together in spaces, small or
Right,
otherwise,
right.
indoors or otherwise, this is how we've been spending our time for the last couple of years.
Okay, based in Fullerton, California, you are the resident theater company with the Muckenthaler Cultural Center, which is also your full-time employer. So tell us a little bit about the
It
Muck
is. It
and
is where I am right
your
now.
job. Oh, good.
I'm currently in the basement of a 1925 mansion.
Wow.
So I'm in the windowless room part, but the rest of it is very beautiful. The Muckenthaler family were a wealthy family in the area in the 20s. They built this beautiful home. They had, acres and acres of land that were once orange groves. And they had one son. And when he was in his later years, he donated the whole grounds and house to the city of Fullerton with the proviso
Wow.
that it be um, dedicated in some way to sort of arts and culture. So now the ground floor of the what used to be their home is now a gallery space. The basement is my office. Upstairs is more offices. And then the grounds themselves are a public park. In the early 90s, late 80s, they put in an amphitheater, which is 230 seats. So if people are familiar with the Muck outside of ECT, it's probably either because they've been to a wedding here. It's a very popular wedding venue because it's a really pretty place, or they might have been to like the jazz festival. So the Muck does concerts weekly, including a jazz festival in the summer that they're pretty well known for. So yeah, it's a multi-use space. There's a huge, art classes here. There's a kiln and like a really cool ceramic studio
Oh,
and
cool.
program here. So there's a lot going on, and ECT is a small, like one of the pieces of the pie. But for Brian and I, for my husband and I, ECT is really it's just the two of us that are really
Right.
running the company.
Right. So definitely a cultural center, and it's nice to have ECT be a part of that space.
Mhm.
Now we're going to talk about you,
Okay.
right? So, how long, just to kick off, how long have you been an actor?
I was a theater major in college. And so I sort of, in high school, I was lucky enough to do some theater with Renee. I loved doing it. I wasn't sure that would be something that I would continue doing. I thought I might be like a Spanish teacher or something else. I majored in theater, minored in Spanish, sort of, like, well, I'll probably stop doing theater, but then I just never did. So I was very fortunate when I was in college. I was in San Diego, and I sort of started auditioning around San Diego, and got to know some great companies down there. And so I've just kind of never stopped. Although the last couple of years since we've started ECT, I really haven't worked anywhere else. We have been like really focused in on this, and it's exciting as an actor to know, like, okay, a year from now I'm going to be working on this project, which when you're not producing it yourself, you don't know when you're going to be working or not.
Speaking of this project, and before we get to that, you did mention Renee. Renee Curtis is also one of the actors that will be performing in White
Yes.
Rabbit, Red Rabbit. She also happens to be my daughter, so
Yes.
I have an intimate relationship with that actress as well. Looking forward to speaking with her in the next couple shows. With this project, and I'll let you describe it
Mhm.
before I ask my next question, but tell me what it is. What is White Rabbit, Red Rabbit?
So, White Rabbit, Red Rabbit is a play that comes with a set of rules that the playwright has given us. And shockingly, and most importantly, it is that the actor is not allowed to read it ahead of time. So, which is very unusual.
Right.
Normally,
So
you memorize
before
your line.
you don't get to look at the script at all
Mhm.
until you're on stage with it in your hand.
Correct.
Wow.
So, I have not read the play because I'm going to be one of the performers. Brian read the play a little over a year ago, and I've not seen him that excited and kind of shook up after reading a script in a really long time. And he was like kind of bursting at the seams because he was like, "I want you to perform this, so I can't tell you what it's about." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" So it is very unusual to cold read in front of an audience, but that is what this is, which is why you'll be able to talk to all the different actors. Because
Right.
once I've read it, I cannot perform it again.
But you do get to go see it. So
Yes,
you'll
which is
get to see it.
I'm going first in our run so that
Right.
I can be there all the other nights to help and help produce things, but also because I want to see everybody else
Right. And
read it.
that makes perfect sense. So knowing these rules,
Mhm.
why say yes? I mean, as an actor who is used to having a lot of prep
Mhm.
time, weeks of rehearsals, working on your script, and make sure you understand your character are off book, meaning you're completely memorized. Why say yes to this project?
Um,
Besides the fact that he's your husband, he's
Yes.
excited about it, right?
And he got so geeked up about it, which
Yeah,
takes a lot for him to get super excited about. I mean, we have seen and read a lot of theater,
right,
more than the average bear, and so if something really blows your mind, it kinda takes a lot t
right,
to do that, so I'm excited to to read it in front of people. Um, so that was the initial, like, "Oh, wow, he's, like, has a big
right.
reaction to this." Also, we were, in sort of full disclosure, like, looking for something that was gonna be a little bit less work. We are parents of a
For your
six-year-old, we
team,
both have full-time
right?
jobs. Um yeah, so the idea that we could do a show that would be, like, really emotional and impactful and not have any rehearsal, um, was really intriguing. The winter, this show will start mid-February. This time last year, we were doing a production of Fiddler on the Roof outside underneath an oak tree. It was beautiful, and it was a lot of work. And in terms of, so something about the Muckenthaler, I mentioned earlier that it's a public park. And with that, that means when we do these site specific productions, events, whatever we do, it has to disappear at the end of the night. And then we have to rebuild it the following day. So it felt like for Fiddler in particular, we're building this community under these beautiful trees. It felt like we were bringing the circus to town every night, setting up the circus, performing the circus, taking the circus away, but then coming back to the exact same spot. Instead of going to
Right.
a new town, we'd come back to the tree again the next day. It took about 3 hours to set up and then about 45 minutes to strike every single night. So that
And
you particularly for
exhausting. It's exhausting.
yeah, it's just a lot of physical work, and so the idea that this would not only not have any big physical setup, but not even have any rehearsal. So we typically rehearse 3 nights a week and then usually 1 weekend day, and so those are 3 nights a week that, we're not with our kid at home, and so to be able to have what I think is gonna be a really impactful emotional experience for our audiences without having to give up those weeks of being busy,
Right.
seemed really exciting. So that's like a really logistical kind of answer in terms of
Right.
why we wanted to sort of schedule this and produce it. And then in terms of the like, why would you sign up to read something in front of strangers? I know it sounds really daunting, but I'm actually way more intimidated with our usual stuff than this because particularly like running the company, being a co-artistic director, anytime we cast me in a show, I feel an intense amount of it's only coming from myself, but sort of self generated pressure that I better be good.
Right.
If
Right.
so, we just did Much Ado About Nothing, and I played Beatrice. It's a dream role. It was so fun, but also I better deliver on that. If I'm going to put myself in that position, I also edited the script, so it was only 90 minutes. If I'm going to put myself out there in that way and cast myself in these roles, I feel a huge amount of pressure. For that. And we've got the whole
Right.
rehearsal process, like you said earlier, like you better be memorized. People are paying
Right.
to come see
Right. Well,
you.
other people are depending on you, whether it's
Right,
being in the right spot at the right time or being off book or,
right.
just the whole transitional process of moving set pieces in and out and people in and out. It is a circus. It is
It is, yeah,
absolutely a
and
circus.
so conversely, for this one, I feel strangely way less pressure, and I don't think when you talk to the other actors, they'll feel this way, but I
No.
do, I feel like because the audience knows and because I know, we're all on the same page, I've never seen this before. Whatever happens, happens, whereas, with the Much Ado, like, you better be good, you better be funny, you better know your lines, you
Right.
better do your thing, and so this to me feels like it is a big question mark, but the audience and I are on the exact same page, which is not true. Normally I'm prepared and I need to, provide something for the audience. And that's the sort of expectation within the audience performer relationship. And in this one, I don't know what it is, but
Right.
the audience knows that I'm not prepared. So it gives me
So
permission to
this
just
falls
experience
into
it.
that category of innovative and immersive and very challenging, and it allows the audience to kind of get a backstage look into how an actor
Mhm,
prepares or what a cold read audition would be like,
mhm,
how you interpret something without any feedback from a director or having
mhm,
had lots and lots of rehearsal or even digging into what is the backstory of my character, which all actors go through it. They need motivation. However they achieve that, everybody is different, but it's going to be a really great project for you.
thanks.
So on top of this, you're a full-time mom or full-time, you have a full-time job, you're a full-time
Mhm,
mom, you're a full-time overtime wife on top of all of this, because when those other things end, when your son is in bed, when you're home from work, you're being the wife, and that fills all that extra time in your
mhm,
life. And so why continue to do theater? Because you already have this full life. Without
mhm.
theater in it, you already.
Yeah,
So I'm asking you personally, Callie,
mhm,
why does
yeah,
Callie continue to do theater when it's clear that this is extra? It's extra for you.
yeah. Totally. So I need to go back to being in college in San Diego. I was really fortunate. My last year of being there, I auditioned for a show at Moxie Theater in San Diego. They're a women-led theater company. It was one of my first sort of professional gigs, and when I walked into the audition, my director um, had a toddler there. It was auditions for The Crucible, which is not like a super toddler friendly play. Um, but she was just like coloring in the corner while we like, did this scene about
That's her life.
puritanical witches. Yeah. And I was like, oh, like it was truly, my jaw was on the floor because prior to that point, as a young person, I had sort of thought like, well, the two things in life that I'm interested in are being a theater artist and maybe having a family. Those are sort of like these two paths, but surely you can't do both. And I was really told that pretty bluntly by female faculty, by female artists that I knew and respected, that like you really cannot do both of these things, that you need to make a choice if you want to, have like a normal family life, or if you want to be an artist, particularly in the theater. And so I had really been told pretty repeatedly. I was 22 at this point. I'd been told several times, like, you got to pick a lane, you got to choose. So what are you going to choose? So going into that audition and seeing this kid playing on the floor, and then I was cast, and then I got to know this company. And not only did she have this toddler, she also had an infant. So she's breastfeeding during these crucible rehearsals. And I mean, it,
That's
it like
awesome.
blew my mind.
Yeah.
That yeah, that suddenly I had this person where I'm like, well, and she wasn't the only person who ran the company. There's 4 or 5 women there who all have small kids at the same time, who are, painting sets and fixing toilets and doing all of these things. And so it really gave me a tangible example of like, you've been told by all these people that you can't have both, but these people have figured it out. These women in particular, these moms in particular, have figured it out. So maybe I could too. So that was really an eye-opening experience in terms of like, okay, somebody's figured it out. So if they can figure
Right.
out, maybe I can figure it out.
Right.
Um,
Ooh, I
so
would have been furious if somebody had said that to me. I would have
oh
it would
really? What do you?
yeah. Oh, I took my kids with me to every
Oh yes,
rehearsal,
that you have to
right? If
choose.
somebody
Yeah,
had told me you can't do both, you can't be a
yeah,
mom and your kids can't be here, I would have said, "Okay, bye." Because
yeah.
I grew up sitting in the corner coloring when my mom was
Right.
doing theater, right?
Yeah.
So it was a big part of my life, and I knew that it was always going to be in some way I would be involved, whether it's participating as a board member
Yes.
or being on stage or directing
Yeah.
or writing, whatever it was, I knew I would always be involved. So I'm so glad you had that experience.
Yeah. Yeah, so since then, I mean, since Brian and I have been married, we've been producing shows together in a bunch of different capacities and venues and places. And so when we had our son Otis, I was actually working at Moxie on staff at that point 6 years ago. I was still teaching theater. So he was with me. I mean, this was pre-COVID. I had him like strapped to my chest in rehearsal, directing shows at USD and the high school where I was teaching. So I was able to really do that. And then COVID hit, and it was like, okay, well, maybe we're not doing this at all anymore. Our son was
Right.
2 at this point. Um, but like I said earlier, suddenly the fact that this thing had been taken away, it felt really clarifying. Like, oh, all I want to do is hang out with my husband and my kid and my family, and I want to make theater. Like those are really the two. The how all we're given is time, and that's how I want to spend mine.
Right.
And eating good food and traveling. So, but in terms of structuring my year and how planning things out, um, the family and the theater are really the things that are the most important to me. And so we've been able to do that. And I have to like shout out the grandparents who watch him all the time, my
Yes.
parents. So, I mean, we are very fortunate that we are sort of, local to where our families are. We have tons of support. And Otis is now in school, which is a whole different, life than it was when he was a toddler and we were first starting out. But he will get to hang out with my parents, and he loves them more than me, which I'm delighted by because he's so happy to be dropped off there and I'm so
Right.
happy to go to rehearsal. So it feels like everybody wins.
Right. So do you think does he have the acting itch at all, you think? Do you think he'll
No, firmly
No?
firmly
Interesting.
and decidedly not. He's very vocal about it. Although he does like the, like, behind the scenes. He loves to be here, he loves to be around it, but he's very clear that he never wants to perform. He tells us
Okay.
all the time. It's a
Well,
hard
we'll
pass
we'll
for him.
check back on that in 10 years and see
Yeah, I don't
see
I
what
don't I I don't know. He's pretty determined right now to not do
Yeah.
it, but he did run the light board. We did a holiday concert last month,
Yeah.
and Brian set up the board for him, and he had a little run sheet that said, like, "Press go when dad nods at you. Good
That's
job, Otis." Like, it was
awesome.
all written out for
That's
him. Pretty
awesome.
cute.
Well,
He did a great
well,
job.
good for that. To get back to White Rabbit, Red Rabbit, are you nervous or afraid at all? Or do you just feel like this is going to be like an amazing cold read experience for you?
I think the latter. I just feel really curious about it, having been talking about it at this point for so many months and still not being able to read it. It's just so strange to schedule a show in our season that I have not read. And I love reading plays, and that's, what I've like. It is strange to skip that part of the to skip that step to
It's been a
decide to
part of
do
your
it.
life for 20 years. So,
Yeah.
that having
Um,
a book in front of you that you get to reference. So,
yeah. So I don't, but I feel more like curious and excited than I do afraid. Again, I think I put more pressure on myself for the traditional roles, um, than I do for this. To me, this feels a little bit more free. Like I feel like there are no expectations on me to deliver a certain kind of performance because none of us know what it is.
right. Right. So,
And I think
because
it'll be
go ahead.
it'll force everybody to be, myself included, whoever is the actor for that night and the audience, I think it will be sort of a uniquely, like, present experience. Like, there won't be any temptation. Sometimes when you've had something memorized for so long and you, have done it over and over and over again, there is the possibility to be on autopilot and to do a scene without really being present because you just have the muscle memory. You could fall into that, and there's zero possibility of falling into that with
Right.
this because we'll all be experiencing it together for the first time.
So, given the construct of this show, you will only perform once. So, what
Yes.
is the date and time of your specific performance?
Mine is Monday, February 10th at 7 o'clock, and
Great.
tickets are at electriccompanytheater.org.
Oh, I was just going to put the banner up that tells
Oh,
us
yeah.
where to
There they
go.
are.
There's a button that you click that will take you right to tickets, and you can see Callie perform White Rabbit, Red Rabbit. What's next for you after this?
What's next is also what's happening today. After I get off this call with you, I need to finish writing our kids show, which is called Fullerton, Our Town, A Little Bit Wilder. The Muck and many other buildings in Fullerton are turning 100 this year. Either 1924 or 1925 is when a lot of the stuff that's still standing here was built. And so there's a lot of centennial sort of celebrations going around. And so I am writing a musical with our friend Wes Chavez, who's written music and been in a lot of our shows. All of this was Brian's idea. So a big part of our process is Brian will have some sort of wacky idea, including White Rabbit, Red Rabbit. And then, the rest of the pieces kind of fall in place from there. So we are doing this show for kids. So about 1,000 Fullerton School District kids will come see this at the Muck on the amphitheater stage. And it will be an original musical about the history of Fullerton, but that's sort of a loving homage slash silly spoof of Our Town by Fullerton Wilder.
Oh, that's awesome. And uh, other people, not just school
Mhm.
children, can actually come and see the show as well. There will be one public
Yes.
performance. Okay.
Yes, in March.
Okay,
And
great.
that's
Well,
also already available at electriccompanytheater.org.
that's amazing. I look forward to all of it. Callie, can't wait to see you on
Thank you.
opening night of White Rabbit, Red Rabbit at Electric Company Theater. You can get your tickets at
Yes.
electriccompanytheater.org, and we'll see you all there. Thanks, Callie.
Thank you.